Funding provided by the League of Women Voters Project Fund.
So Proposition 107 and 108, and the speakers have agreed to this. We've lumped them together considering they deal with very similar issues. Let's start with Proposition 107, presidential primary elections. Proposition 107 amends the Colorado revised statutes to establish a presidential primary to be held in March of each presidential election year. Major provisions include: it establishes a presidential primary election in Colorado. It allows unaffiliated voters to participate in the presidential primary without affiliating with a political party. Proposition 108. It amends the Colorado revised statutes to allow an unaffiliated voter to vote in a primary election. Major provisions include: allows voters who are not affiliated with a political party to vote in a non-presidential primary election. It requires unaffiliated voters to vote in the primary for only one political party. It allows political parties to opt out of holding an open primary election and instead nominate candidates either by assembly or convention.
So I'm from Gunnison. My husband and I ranch east of town. I'm a former state representative. Served in the General Assembly for 6 years with a lot of folks you guys probably know. I think he eventually made it to the Senate, but Josh Henry, Rob Whitwer, a lot of folks from the, I ended up leaving the General Assembly about 6 years ago. So it was a previous generation in Denver. I'm here tonight because I'm going to speak to Propositions 107 and 108, and they're important to me because I am an unaffiliated voter. I was in the General Assembly my last year. I served as the state's first and only ever independent member of the Colorado General Assembly. And that was an interesting year, I must say. I have 2 kids. One is a student at Western, and the other lives in California. They're both also unaffiliated voters. So, and I teach part-time at Western. I teach state and local government, and I absolutely love to do that. So I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum, and I'm looking forward to it. So 107 and 108 are similar but different. They're being proposed by the same entity. Let Colorado Vote is the group that has been moving these 2 measures forward. So if you want to get some more detail, more than what you can glean from tonight's discussion, I would go online, look for Let Colorado Vote on Google, and go to their website, and there are fact sheets and Q&As, that kind of thing. Ballotpedia is another great source that you could go to online to get the full text. And then, of course, you do have as a resource your Blue Book. And I'm going to, if I have the time, I'll come back to that. So 107, the way to think about it is that it is a measure that would restore presidential primaries to the election calendar. We have not had a presidential primary in Colorado since year 2000, so 16 years. And I think the reason that it went away years ago was that it's costly. And the thought was that there would be participation and a big process if we went through the caucus, and then assembly, and then convention, and then primary exercise. So on the down ticket races. But on the presidential side, we haven't had a primary since year 2000. Now, I'm an independent, so I did not go and stand in any of the lines or get aggravated or frustrated like you all read about after the caucus process this year. Apparently, for both parties, there were some issues with regard to the amount of time it took, overcrowding at caucuses, having to state your vote publicly or your position publicly, wait in line, you might have had to work and you couldn't make it. So there was all kinds of press coverage you might recall with regard to the primaries the caucuses that were held for the 2 major parties. So this this proposition, as was mentioned earlier, is a statutory amendment, not a constitutional amendment, and so it could be unraveled after, or it could be changed if it needs to be tweaked. But one of the major provisions is that unaffiliated voters could participate in that presidential primary should it be established, and it would be set for it would have to be conducted before the 3rd Tuesday in March. So that would put Colorado in kind of a neat position to weigh in on the presidential race early on in the process, before the whole thing was basically a done deal. Now the segue into 108 is that this is a down ticket measure, allowing unaffiliated voters to participate in what are essentially private organizations. In the private organizations, the two major parties are the subject of this measure, not minor parties. But the two major parties would have to allow unaffiliated voters to vote in their primaries at the county level, the legislative level, and the congressional level. And the unaffiliated voters would not have to sign up for a party. Now, to be clear, that is today, the way it works now, is if I wanted to go vote in, say, the Republican, in a Republican primary, I can disregard my unaffiliated status, go to the county clerk's office, register in that party, and then participate in that primary. Now, for unaffiliated voters, this has proven to be a major obstacle. They are not doing that. Their participation is 5% or less. So what we have is the unaffiliated voters are not taking advantage of this opportunity. They are not changing their affiliation and signing up for a party. There's a reason why they're unaffiliated. They don't want to do that. Today in Colorado, we have closed primaries. We are one of only 13 states with closed primaries at the legislative level. This needs to be, in my view, changed because our primaries are being paid for by all of us. I cannot participate without signing up for a party, but I'm paying for these private organizations to have their primaries conducted. And the reason for that is these are public dollars. They're state dollars and county dollars that are funding primaries. So our tax dollars, my tax dollars. I think there's clearly a right to associate in our Constitution, and that is not being disputed here. But the issue is a matter of participation and fairness. If we are in a position where our tax dollars are actually funding these measures, I think we should be able to participate as an unaffiliated voter. And one of the positive outcomes there should be more participation with the general public, and hopefully ultimately a better outcome with regard to the opportunities that are afforded to potential candidates. So with that, I won't go over my time, and I'm looking forward to answering any questions if I can.
Seeing as we have no representatives for 107, 108, I will read from the against section in the Colorado Blue Book, and I'll start with 107. So arguments against for 107. Proposition 107 uses a combined ballot system for unaffiliated voters that will likely result in some unaffiliated voter ballots not being counted, could change the primary election winners, and would raise costs for taxpayers. On a combined ballot, unaffiliated voters must vote for only one party's candidate. People who vote for candidates in both parties will have their ballot disqualified, and their ballots will not be counted. This can change the election results and may result in contested elections and litigation. Producing and processing a separate combined ballot only for unaffiliated voters creates administrative and financial burdens for counties, especially smaller or rural counties. Point number 2 against. Proposition 107 shifts costs to taxpayers, and the state and counties will be required to spend at least $5 million every 4 years to conduct a presidential primary election. Under a caucus system, taxpayers save money because caucuses are conducted and funded by the political parties. Taxpayers should not be required to pay the cost of nominating contests for political parties. The measure also places an administrative burden on counties to conduct an additional election every 4 years. Point number 3. Under current law, unaffiliated voters who wish to participate in a caucus can declare their party affiliation ahead of time and attend. Prop 108. Arguments against. Proposition 108 uses a combined ballot system for unaffiliated voters that will likely result in about 7% of unaffiliated voter ballots not being counted, which could change election winners and would raise costs for taxpayers. On a combined ballot, unaffiliated voters must vote for only one party's candidates. People who vote for candidates in both parties will have their ballots disqualified, and their ballots will not be counted in will not be counted. In Washington State, where combined ballots are used, 7% of ballots are disqualified. This can change election results and may result in contested elections and litigation. Producing and processing a separate combined ballot only for unaffiliated voters creates administrative and financial burdens for counties, especially smaller or rural counties. Point number 2. Colorado law allows unaffiliated voters who wish to vote in the party's primary election to easily change their party affiliation at any point during the election, up to and including on election day. Political parties are membership organizations that have the right to select their own candidates without influence from people who choose not to affiliate with the party. That's the arguments against that are printed in the Colorado Blue Book. First question, do you think unaffiliated voters will vote any differently than those affiliated to the two major parties?
I think unaffiliated voters are unpredictable. And they do statistically generally mean because there are never any other options on the ballot. So yeah, they're gonna go with whatever fits their value system unless there are other options on the ballot, and you don't see many unaffiliated candidates on the ballot. I'm not sure if I answered the question. Does it sound like I did? Yeah, okay.
Some heads nodding, maybe one head was somebody who wrote the question. Will the state fund primaries for Green, Libertarians, etc., as well as Dems and Republicans?
Well, the state funds primaries now for them, if there ever is one. There aren't typically primaries on the Libertarian side, although in the last cycle in 2014 there were 2, I think. And as far as I know, those are funded by the state and the counties together because they have to get run out of the county clerk's office. So that's what I think the story is with minor parties. Maybe one of you guys knows better, but that's my understanding. Yeah, and then this would have to come out of the state budget for, the state's already financing primaries that are down ticket. If the question has to do with presidential primaries, yes, the concept is that those would be publicly funded. That's set forth in statute.
Kathleen, 17108. How much would a primary cost and how would it be paid for?
The presidential one? Because we have numbers on the, okay. So we're already doing, those other primaries, right? On the other races. So I'm assuming you're asking about the presidential one. And I think the Blue Book said 5 million. Can I look it up? It's right here. I looked at the other. So I think it's in it's split on the financial analysis in the Blue Book, but yeah, it's in the millions. Go back to presidential primary.